don't have gold. I got diamonds in the coal, and that's you.
Hello and welcome to Eye in the Heart. If you're here, I believe you're trying too hard. Let me explain why. Okay, so anxiety and depression. These are the two most common mental health symptoms, and we need to call them symptoms, okay, not disorders. These are life experiences that we're having for good reason, often, and very tied in with the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves. Anxiety and depression. I want to talk in this video about why I believe anxiety and depression has a lot to do with trying too hard. So I don't know how familiar people are here with some of the philosophies surrounding psychology. There's a lot of Buddhism going on in psychology right now. There's a lot of the Tao Te Ching or Taoism happening in psychology. A lot of people are talking about Eastern traditions, and I think what they're trying to do, and I think what people in culture are trying to do, is try to say, I live a very, they're screaming out, really, I have a very stressful life. I work in the city. I've got a very stressful job. I've got to manage my kids, my husband, my wife, my work, my colleagues, my car, my house, which is so expensive now, all of these different things, and they're looking to the Eastern tradition, and it feels very Zen and very much, there's a lot of good things to be found in Buddhism, Taoism, and everywhere else, and also in the Western traditions. I mean, Charles Bukowski, who was a famous poet, had engraved on his tombstone, "Don't try," which is a funny thing to engrave on your tombstone because everybody kind of feels that way about the existentialist view of life, that it doesn't really matter. But there's another aspect of it that I think is really important, which is that when you don't try, you're actually getting a flow state, right? Why is that? Well, part of it comes from resistance. Okay. So I'd like to refer back to some work now that maybe you guys can get involved in, that I'm very interested in. I'm big on homework, not in the form of writing or anything else, but writing is one thing, but I'm really interested in homework that you can enjoy, right? Because nobody wants to do homework like in high school. I'm not going to give you math homework. Homework can be in the form of movies, it can be in the form of audio, it can be in the form of anything really. As long as we enjoy consuming it, it's really important that it's not a textbook about anxiety that you are desperately reading for answers and finding it an absolute snore to deal with. No, this is supposed to be a fun process. Believe me, you won't do it unless it is. It's just like exercise. It's much more likely that you'll enjoy exercise if it's actually a physical activity that you enjoy. A person that I really enjoy, who talks a lot about resistance and emotional resistance, is a guy called Joe Hudson. He's got a podcast called The Art of Accomplishment. I would like you, if you can, or if not, that's also fine, I'll talk about it in this video, to check out his episodes on The Art of Accomplishment, about anxiety and how anxiety is about unmet needs. But a lot of what he works with is resistance. He's basically saying that most of our lives we spend in a state of resisting an emotional state. So anxiety isn't about experiencing anxiety. Most of anxiety comes from resisting anxiety. We do not want to experience the emotional state of that terrible panic or that terrible anxious feeling that you get, or that feeling of depression and sadness and doom or whatever. So what we do is we resist it. We try against it. And what ends up happening is that we experience it more as a result, because we're internalizing a problem. We're saying, I'm the problem, and now I have to do something to me to get out of that problem. I have to take a shower this morning. I've got to work harder, make more money. I've got to find a girlfriend or boyfriend or have a family, whatever it is, right? What we're really doing is we're resisting emotional states because we don't want to experience them. And so we're trying very, very hard to resist them. I think this is so poignant in today's culture. I feel today's culture is hyper competitive, and it feels that we are becoming avatars of ourselves as far as our accomplishment goes, and really undervaluing rest and really undervaluing our intuition and ourselves. I mean, if you are screaming out in your soul for rest, what is the problem of taking it? What do you think is going to happen? You will fall into a deep, dark abyss and never be able to come out again. Or all the practical things in your life that you're trying to uphold will fall away and you will not have anything anymore. But the way that I see trying too hard is that, well, maybe these are things, these values that you have that you're working so hard to maintain, these masks, these little symbols of achievement or whatever it is, they can come up and be really problematic long term. We're actually exhausting ourselves. We're exhausting ourselves to the point where we're going to lose everything anyway. So what is the point of continuing on this trying and this striving when it's going to burn us out? And the idea of trying too hard with anxiety is counterintuitive, because if you're experiencing anxiety or depression, what you're really feeling is there's something wrong with me and I can't seem to enjoy life. Other people seem to be enjoying life. So I need to safeguard this. I need to safeguard this trip to the grocery store. I need to safeguard this social interaction, this party. I need to make sure, oh no, I'm not ready. This thing is too scary. I will avoid it. Okay? We're trying way too hard, you know? And really, the natural state of somebody that you want when you're working with somebody with anxiety or depression is to go into a situation that is stressful and feel very little about it. Does that mean that they don't make mistakes? No. Of course they make mistakes, right? Everybody makes mistakes every day, constantly. It never stops. Happens all the time. I can tell you that from personal experience. But how quickly we can have that story in ourselves that, oh, that was a mistake. But generally speaking, I'm moving in the right direction with who I am as a human being. That's going back to narrative psychology, and it's going back to the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves. And also the subconscious stories that we're living out. One of the things that I didn't explain in my first video about narrative psychology was oftentimes we have a story, and it's an archetypal story, whether it's a story about the jester or the prodigal son or whatever it is. These are stories that have sort of implanted into human consciousness. We're raised with them. We see them. We read them. The stories that we watch on TV are the same stories that we've seen from ancient mythology. They've just been readapted and changed. So we can be watching, I don't know, The Last of Us or whatever TV show, The Wire, and it seems like something new to us, but it is really just an amalgamation and a mixing and a twisting of stories that have been told again and again and again with small variations. But from a viewer's perspective or from a person's perspective, it can actually alienate us a little bit from the story, while myth can be so much more pure and simple. We can understand what archetype is being told in that story immediately. And that's why myth and fairy tales and stories are so important. Even modern day stories and TV shows and movies and music, because they're really just the twin brother, the twin, the great grandson of that story with variables and variations. So looking at that and looking what we're playing out there is really important, because there's something called Gestalt therapy, and Gestalt means a circle, which means that you will be playing out the same scenario over and over again, trying to get a different result, and suffering during the process and during the end, because you're never quite getting there. Resistance is a bit like that too. We resist the anxiety. We try not to experience the anxiety. We're moving in that neurotic circle again and again, trying to resist something. But if we actually feel it to its core, we can know it's not dangerous. And when we know it's not dangerous, what is left? The future, the narrative future, the one that we can create for ourselves. That's the most important thing in psychology, for me at least. It's where people take their lives from this point on. But it does require that we don't try so hard to avoid some of the symptoms of anxiety and depression, that we can kind of put it out, externalize it, put it outside of ourselves, but also allow it to tell us what it is it's wanting to tell us. Are there some unmet needs happening? And if so, what are they? You can work with a psychotherapist, you can work with me about this, but also understanding that this is outside yourself and that this happens to lots of people and it's not your fault that a story has gone askew is very important to be able to work with and change it. There's nothing fundamentally flawed in you or anybody else as a human being. This is just the way that the mind works under a specific set of circumstances with a specific set of biological factors and environmental factors. It has nothing to do with you. It's all out of your control, and that's where Taoism comes in too, where it's like you never step into the same river twice, or just kind of let it flow energy. So having said all of that, and I'm really kind of reaching now to find a nice conclusion to the video, and it's hard for me because the thing that I think about this resistance is that it's so complicated, and it always comes up. The moment that we feel that something may be a threat, and in the past it would be a lion, and today it could be having a meeting with our boss. It's so hard because, of course, the boss isn't an immediate threat. He's not going to bite your head off, literally. He's not going to start gnawing on your body. But the stakes are still as high. But the surrealness of that this office is as dangerous as a lion can be really counterintuitive to the brain. So it really asks us to understand intellectually, but also in our bodies, a little bit more about what anxiety is and where it's coming from and what it's telling you. Again, are there unmet needs, right? Are you trying too hard to be something? Okay. And here's the thing, right, about these stories that we're trying to finish. We're trying again and again and again to relive something that's going to solve our story. But we might be telling the wrong story about ourselves. We might not be getting the conclusion that we want. We might not be finishing the circle or the gestalt. And that's one of the things that narrative psychology is so good with, is understanding what story would satisfy the gestalt. Because I don't believe that people, like in Taoism, don't have to fight and just go with the flow. I think there are certain circumstances, because of the way that we're hardwired, that a challenge has to be met. Or not. But we don't live as these sort of independent creatures without connection to society, without connection to story, without connection to environment, or our families, or places, or things. And to really individuate, to really become ourselves and feel good about ourselves, sometimes we have to take the challenge. Sometimes we have to understand what it is about our story that needs to get played out in real life. And narrative psychology can help to focus on what exactly that story is. What's the most helpful story? Because we don't want to be playing out stories that aren't working for us for many, many years. And that's the only real danger about depression and anxiety. Otherwise, there isn't one. It's just the not engaging heroically and joyfully in your life. So thank you for watching. I hope that you reach out, and I hope that you contact me, and we contact me either on my email or WhatsApp, and we can book a free session. And all the best to you, and see you later.